Welcome to the very first Logix podcast, where we focus on everything a growing automation engineer needs. If you're working in the industrial automation, robotics, instrumentation, or controls, and you want to get ahead in your career, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll bring you real-world insights, stories, and strategies to help you level up as an engineer. So I'm excited to have you here with me today. As I mentioned on the intro, this is our very first podcast. And you're going to find that I do things pretty casual. I don't think that we need to be complicated or wildly professional. We just need to be real. And I have some real subjects I want to chat about, some real things I want to talk about. We're going to hopefully over time meet some really cool and interesting people. And we're going to look at this industry from, I think, a very unique perspective. One that I don't think that we spend a lot of time in, and that is, at least on a large enough scale, and that is, what does it take? What do we got to do to grow this industry, to fill some gaps and recruit some really great talent into this industry? And what do we got to fix in order to be able to improve the training? So I'm excited to have you join me today. We're going to talk about lots of very interesting subject. I should say we're going to talk about a very interesting subject. And that subject is kind of a business model that I use, a training model. And I want to share that with you today. And I call it the Visa model. So let me explain what that is. Okay, so training in the industrial automation, like many others, robotics, instrumentation, controls, up to this point in 2025 has largely been textbooks, power slides, and you go to college and you learn the theory of this job, this industry. And I know what that's like. Not that I have went to college. I've taken some college classes, but my son went to college for controls or electrical engineering, and so I have a pretty good insight as to what's being taught in the colleges. I've also worked with college professors, and I have a pretty good insight as to what's being taught. Obviously, me in my career, I came up with an experience where it was been hands-on. So I started building control panels and then eventually leveraged that into doing controls work. And I've been able to work literally, I've been able to travel the world. I've worked on cutting edge tech. I've led multi-million-dollar projects for billion-dollar companies. And, I've made a real nice high five, six-figure income. And I've lived a very purposeful and adventurous life, as you'll get to learn more about as you get to know me. So what I struggled with moving into this career was how to learn the career. The thing that kills me, it freaking kills me, and it is when I get into a situation where I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to do it. Say maybe programming or some part of the controls world, and I'm working with a controls engineer that actually knows how to do it. Right? They're more senior to me, and then they'll look at you and they'll just shake your head, or they'll just walk away, and they don't help you. They don't teach you. You get a job, and your boss doesn't know how to do the job, and so we end up with this vicious cycle of struggling to learn how to do this job. And if you've ever been there, it doesn't take a couple of times. You realize this really freaking stinks. And this is the frustration that I faced from several years as I've learned about this career and learn how to do this career. And it just infuriates me. Puts such a fire in my heart and in my soul that I'm telling you, I just want to grab something and break it. And I want to look at it and say, shut the freak up and start teaching people. And if you want me to learn how to do this job, freaking teach me how to do the freaking job. It just kills me when I'm struggling to do the job and people don't teach you. The colleges, I worked with a guy up in Michigan at a pretty prestigious engineering firm, and he's teaching controls at one of the local communities. And he's excited to be a professor. It's the first time, and he's pulled to the side and he's told, do not teach anything outside of this very narrow set of information. And I looked at it and it's very silly, basic stuff. And he's like, I could teach them so much, I could make them so much better if they'd let me, but the school won't let me. And I'm thinking, it's infuriating. You're paying a couple hundred, $250, $300 a credit hour, and they want to limit how much you learn versus let's teach what's going to be really valuable for these people. But no, we can't do that. We have to limit. We have to limit what they learn. So every angle I look at, it's been a frustrating experience for me. And this is not one. It's like not a bad day, not a bad week, not a bad month. It's bad years where you struggle, you make bad mistakes, you burn things up, made mistakes, made horrible programming, and it just kills me, right? So if you want to know what our subject is about, why I'm so passionate about what I'm going to talk to you about, this is why, right? And I'm sharing this with you via this podcast because I really want you to get a sense of what I'm feeling here. I really want you to hear this. I can't write it. I love writing, but I can't write this frustration. You got to hear the vitriol that I have about this situation. We've got to fix this. This has got to be better. It's got to be improved. And I think that I have a great way to do that. Right? And that's what I want to talk about today. I call it the Visa model, VISA. I'm going to share it with you today. So there's 4 pillars to this, and that's the Visa model, right? The VISA. And it stands for video, interactive, simulation, and apprenticeship. The approach really, the goal of the approach is to change the way technicians and engineers learn, hopefully making it faster, more engaging, closer to the real world of controls engineering. Now, I'm going to kind of go through my notes here with you. And, there's a need for this new model, without a doubt, because up to this point, we think about the old days, people would go to college, and then they would go and get hired by a company. The company will put you under a training. You're an engineer now. They mentor you, they develop you, and then over the 10 years that you work for the company, you become a senior controls engineer. Well, that segue into this career is very, very rare these days, in my experience. Now, I will challenge anybody in the United States of America, and I don't care what your experience, what your pedigree, what your knowledge. I've literally had, I don't know, I won't say 100, but dozens and dozens of different jobs and contracts. And I'm telling you, bar none, whether they've been a top-notch engineering firm or they're a small company, to a T, there's virtually little to no training. They expect to hire you in and you just got to know everything. And this is rather you've got 1 year, 6 months, 10 years, it doesn't matter. You're hired in. You got to know how to do everything, and that is a really bad approach, and that's a separate subject. But it's incredibly hard for you to learn how to do the job. One, to be honest, here's what I know when starting a job, and 2, have faith that the employer is going to continue developing your skill set. I mean, in truthfulness, it helps the company, but and we'll talk about it later. Just suffice to say, there's just not that training evolution that we all would hope to have. Now, honestly, you get the job and then you get access to equipment and you kind of figure things out. And to a degree, you're going to have that. To a degree, you're going to have that. But truthfully, there is a better way. And the Visa model, I think, is the better way. So in today's world, we have these really complex automation systems today, and they're getting more and more complex. And it's not going to get easier. If anything, it's going to get more complicated. And for me personally, my training has been a lot of it is I will get a job or I'll get a contract, and I will look at it and hey, maybe my fault or not, I will look at it and say, if I have even kind of an idea of what I'm supposed to do, what they want me to do, I'll be like, yep, I can figure that out. Then I get the job and I figure it out. Now, senior engineer would say, okay, I don't see the problem. A junior guy would you would not normally do that. You set yourself up for failure, which by the way has happened to me. And I've taken on opportunity. I've been the minnow in a shark tank, and that is not a great experience. So, and I've had some failures without a doubt. All right. And largely it's because I didn't know how to learn. I didn't know how to learn. When I started, the internet was very new, and we didn't have some of the training options we have today. For example, videos. We just didn't have that. And when I did work with senior engineers, I I really had the rare occasion to have one be able to spend very little time with me at best, very little at best. So I kind of over time have really felt there has to be a better way. There really has to be. Now, for me, as time grew, we've seen that there were videos. Video has become a ubiquitous training tool. Everybody's looking at, you're watching, you got a machine down, and what do? You grab the YouTube video and you look at how to try to solve that problem, right? You're a new guy in particular, even some of the older guys, more senior guys say, okay, this is something I have to look up. And I get that. That's what technical documents are for, right? Reference materials. YouTube is a resource. I'm not going to say it's not. The problem with my perspective and the need for a new training model is that the video becomes the only resource, right? The only way to learn it. And I'm going to carry on here in a minute, and I'm going to tell you why that's a detriment. It's a benefit and it's a detriment, right? And that is, it's passive. It's passive. You just look at it. Now, if you don't have the hardware and the software, well, you're not going to learn how to do that job. You can't watch something. What is it? The phrasing of, learn. I'm going to just kind of paraphrase it. I'm going to learn 25% what I see and 75% of what I do. I know that that's not the accurate quote, but it's the sentiment. I'm not going to remember how to do something just by watching it. I have to do it. Therefore, the second pillar in the Visa model is interactive. We've got to create training that's interactive, right? Now, obviously, if you don't have the hardware and you don't have the software, and a lot of software is expensive, right? And the hardware is even way more expensive. It's literally impossible. Say to point IO, right? How are you going to learn that? That's a browser-based software to set the configurations, right? How are you going to learn that if you don't have the hardware? You're not going to be able to pull up the browser software and configure the hardware. How do you learn that, right? You're not going to learn that in your community colleges because they don't have the hardware generally. Or has happened with my son, and this is without a doubt, my son went to a really good school overall. However, one of his professors who was teaching automation one semester got in front of the class and said, I don't know anything about automation and control, so I guess we'll learn together. This is paying about $250, $275 per credit hour being taught by an instructor who doesn't know what they're doing. Now, you can say whatever you want. You can argue your point. And I love the school. It's a super great school overall. However, what other options do you have, right? Well, the other option is we need some sort of simulation then, right? How do we do it? We need to simulate it. And there is where my business, Logix Trainers, comes into play. We build interactive simulation. So something you can interact with in a way that looks and feels exactly like the real software and the real hardware. And we simulate it, and then you have to interact with it, toggling bits, making decisions, and energizing contacts in Studio 5000 as though it's the real software and the real hardware. But you don't have any hardware or software that you need. You don't even have to upload or download. You don't have to travel, and there's no licenses. You just log in, pull up you start the course, and it will simulate having the software and the hardware right in front of you. So this is why. You understand the frustration. And then and I'll hopefully spend some time today sharing with you how this evolution of coming to this came to be, but that frustration led me to say there's got to be a better way. There's got to, just has to be an interactive simulation. In today's world, this is a great path. It's a great path for a new person or even an experienced person who's using software or hardware that they've never used before and want to get some training or refresher training or introductory training for new technicians or engineers. Interactive simulation is a great tool. Now, video is awesome in that we get videos can be used to teach the idea, the concept, the overall view. But again, it's passive. But if you really want to get good at something, you have to have some repetition. It's got to be interactive, right? And it's got to simulate the real thing. So when you walk away from the training, you go out on the floor and you have the real hardware and the real software. You're like, oh, this all looks familiar. This is exactly what I trained with, or at least it looks exactly like what I trained with. Yep, click here, do this, set this parameter, boom, I'm done. That's the value of Visa, right? Our Visa model. Now, A is for our apprenticeship, right? Now, here's the thing. We don't have the apprenticeship programs that we used to have back in, the old days, even before my time. Or there was some back when I was younger, when I first starting in manufacturing. But we don't have that level of apprenticeships today. And that, my friends, is a real problem, because I can show you a video. I can give you some interactive training, simulation and interactive training. But if you don't get some mentorship and some opportunities to work on the hardware and the software in the real world, you're going to miss a huge and a very important portion of your training. Now, we all got to admit, it's like, Paul, I think you have a good snapshot of this training, right? So we got video, right? So we understand the concept. We understand it's got to be something we're interacting with in a way that's realistic. So if on our software we're clicking here, entering this data, choosing this parameter, it has to be similar to what we're doing in the real world. So it's got to simulate the real world, and we want to interact. We don't want to just be passive, right? So if we would do it on the software, we do it in the interactive simulation training. But then we need to have that opportunity to get out on the floor with somebody who can help mentor us, somebody who can help monitor our progress, who can encourage us, who can answer maybe some questions that we may have. And that's very, very important. The Visa model is a great training model, in my opinion. And it's the foundation for the business that I built. It's really very important to be able to get all four of these pillars in your training. Now, you can say, okay, so I can watch a video and then I can get some software, maybe from myplctraining.com. Stephen Gates, super great guy. He's got some software that you can get, and that's it, right? I get the real software and I can simulate writing real PLC programs. Okay, let me share something with you. I caution you to believe that you're a new technician or engineer, and somehow you think I'm going to take training, and Stephen Gates got a great introductory training course, and of course you got so many other ones out there, right? Vladimir, and so is PLC, and you got several other ones. So he's got some great trainings out there, and I know how to write a PID, and I know how to write program, and I know how to do a little bit of HMI design. So boom, I'm going to get a job, and they're going to let me be a programmer. That's not the way it's going to work, my friends. I hate to burst your bubble. It's not going to work that way. The way it's going to work is you're going to come in, and the first task they're going to do is have you do basic wiring and basic technician level work, which is installing a device, setting up configuration, maybe some basic wiring. They're not going to give you a laptop and say, go work on my $300,000 machine, which is part of a multi-million-dollar process when you just get this job. It's just not going to happen. You're too new. They're not going to risk you damaging their equipment. You're too new. You don't have the experience to go out there and just start editing programs, writing programs. That's not going to happen. You need to start at the technician, the automation technician level, whereas I'm going to monitor the programming. I'm going to be able to maybe adjust some timings. I'm going to set some configuration on a P525, for example, PowerFlex 525. I'm going to ensure the configuration of a point IO, all right? So you're going to do this technician level work first for maybe a couple of years before you ever get to do any real substantial PLC programming. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. You're going to set parameters, you're going to set lasers and photo eyes, and you're going to configure the cameras, and you're going to integrate it, but you're not writing the master code, the full code, right, for a PLC program for a machine. You're going to assist a senior engineer to ensure that all the devices are integrated correctly. That's the level of work you're going to do. And my friend, I encourage you to focus on that more so than learning how to write some big, fancy, comprehensive PLC program. Because in the real world, you're not going to write. I'm moving this picture over here. If you hear what's going on in the background, you're not going to write these PLC programs. You're too new. They're not going to do it, and they're going to risk their machines. So with that in mind, that's what Logix Trainers focuses on. So we look at it, we say, okay, of course we need video, right? Conceptual. We need it to be interactive. We need it to be, we need something that simulates the real world, right? And it needs to simulate and be interactive as though you're doing the exact task in the real world you would normally do. So an example would be to set a parameter on a PowerFlex 525 using Studio 5000, right? So you open up Studio 5000, you go down to the controller tree, and you open up your PowerFlex 525, and you adjust the parameter in there for that drive. It's got to look and feel like the real software, and you're going to be as though you're doing the real task. So we have a device level learning, right? Why? Because that's what you're going to be learning. Despite what you might think or somebody's going to tell you, that's what you're going to be doing. You're not going to be doing these complex PLC programs. So you're going to be doing that. You're going to, what you do needs to simulate the real world and be interactive. Now, of course, we use video within our training also to kind of set the stage, give you a perspective, an overview, generally what it is that you're trying to learn. Now, that is the Visa model. So I encourage you to take a minute, step back for a minute, and say, would you hire somebody new right out of training if they had much training? Maybe, so what they're going to do is they're going to show you a certificate for a $67 training course they went through. Or maybe I went to the local community college and took a couple of courses. And then this is your $300,000 machine, and you're busy running the company, and you're going to hire this guy, and would you hand him a laptop and say, hey, go work on my $300,000 machine while I go run the company? No, you wouldn't. With that level of honesty, that integrity that you have, then you could say, okay, with that in my mind, Paul's right. I think I need to reframe how I look at what it is I need to learn, right? I need to learn device level, not PLC programming level, not design level. I need to integrate as an automation technician, right? And that's the piece that I need to focus on. And unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of great places to learn this from. Cameras, photo eyes, sensors, drives, programmable relays, all those things that get integrated into Studio 5000, for example. There are all these devices, and there's so many different ones and so many different uh, pieces of knowledge that you need to learn to be able to do this. And that is the very first level of work you should learn. Therefore, that is what Logix Trainers' goal is, to create training that really helps you in the area that you're going to be learning. And the reasons why, I think it's very clear. And if you're honest with yourself, it's very clear as to why you need to learn this. Okay, and I have a model, it's the Visa model, that helps you do that. It's very important I have got to help you reframe your mind a little bit as to what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, right? So that's very, very important. All right. Today, if I were to recap, we talked about the Visa model for training. Video for accessible learning, conceptual, right? Interactive for engagement, simulation for a safe way to practice, apprenticeship for real world growth. We put these together, these steps can transform how you grow as an automation engineer. Now, of course, if you're ready to take the next step, I really encourage you to go out to logixtrainers.com. That's Logix Trainers, TRAINERS.com. Or you can get it, you can experience this, where we bring this model to life with demo lessons, interactive simulation training for controls engineers and automation technicians. We have courses, and we have demos that you can try. Demos don't cost you anything. Courses are extremely inexpensive right now, considering the value I think that they bring. And if you go there, you can see how you can start learning today on your own time, in your own way. But if you take this conceptual model and you look at it, and then you start learning for the devices, and you just start stacking these devices. When you go into the real world, you can speak to during an interview, and you're going to feel that conversation. We have another podcast where we talk about how to talk about being a new technician or engineer during an interview. We're going to talk about how to talk about yourself, how to sell yourself with the skill that you have. But you're going to be able to speak with confidence, because you're going to really know the device level, the technician. And when you talk to somebody, they're going to say, this guy gets what it is I'm looking for. He's not trying to sell himself as some high-level PLC programmer. I don't need that. I need somebody to help my senior engineer so that it frees up his time to take on bigger projects. That's the value you bring. And if you can speak to that, and you can speak with the correct perspective, and you can actually bring the correct set of skills, I assure you the future is bright for you, my friend. Very bright. Okay. Thank you for your time on this very first episode of the Logix podcast. I really encourage you to stay curious, stay sharp, and let's keep engineering your future. Okay, this is Paul Godinez with Logix Trainers. I will chat with you guys next week. Cheers.